Thank you very, very much, Gare. I think your grandfather was certainly very correct in that we are all instruments. So now that we have the background and how PKU came to being, we want to offer a glimpse of what PKU can look like in the future. Betsy Bogard works in the rare disease community to support development of transformative therapies. Her current position is with medical affairs at Bluebird Bio, a biotechnology company developing gene therapy for diseases and cancer. She does not work in PKU. She also serves as research committee chair for the International FOP Association. And the National PKU Alliance had the great privilege of having her work with us about a year ago to look at developing a comprehensive research strategy to move PKU forward. So please welcome with me in joining Betsy to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning. That was an incredible story about Dr. Folling. What a privilege to hear about his journey in life and work. I loved the moment of connection between him and a mother trying to find a solution for her children. It is so much of what represents the connections that happen today between a patient community and the clinicians and researchers trying to help them. I am thrilled and honored to be here to talk about the future of PKU. This is an incredibly exciting time in your community. There is a lot to talk about. In the recent weeks, you have seen the approval of a new treatment option for PKU, Palynziq, developed by BioMarin and approved in the United States in May. A new clinical trial started in April for a novel treatment being developed by Synlogic, and new data on the promise of gene therapy presented at a scientific conference in May. What a phenomenal season this is for the PKU community. You have incredible opportunity in front of you, and this is a credit to every family, clinician, researcher, and drug developer who has worked tirelessly to get you to this point. This opportunity is long awaited and much needed, of course, because while we have done a great job at managing PKU and reducing phenylalanine levels, we are not where we should be. We have not solved the problem. The treatments available today allow life, for which we are grateful, but they are not for everyone, and they are not a cure. I would like to share with you this morning my view of what is ahead for PKU and how this community and each one of you working together can solve the problem. I'm here today because rare disease has been in my world for as long as I can remember, and I am determined to do something to help. My own family has been affected by a rare disease, not PKU, but a different disease with a different set of 3 menacing letters, FOP. That is me and my little brother, Judd. He lives with the rare and severely disabling disease, fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, which causes muscles to be gradually replaced by bone. He is why I work in this field, why I am passionate about developing medicines for rare diseases, and why I am grateful every day I get to do something to help. As Christine mentioned, I work in biotechnology too. My job is at Bluebird Bio, and Bluebird is not working on PKU. I've chosen to separate the work that I do in biotechnology from the work that I do to help patient communities, like the PKU community. I am here today on a day off from Bluebird. And I've worked in drug development for a long time. I was at Genzyme for 10 years, where I got to know a little bit about enzymes. and I've worked at the International FOP Association, which supports my brother's disease. And last year, I was thrilled when Christine and the NPKUA board gave me the privilege to evaluate the organization's research strategy and help them decide how best to utilize your community-raised dollars to make the biggest difference possible towards having new and transformative treatments for PKU. I was so excited to do this because I believe patient organizations like the NPKUA can be so critical and make such a big difference in getting to a solution for a rare disease. There are two parts to what I want to talk about this morning. The first is to tell you about the project that we did last spring because it is an insight into the future for the NPKUA. And then I want to talk about the therapeutic approaches and the innovative ideas that form the hope for a new future for PKU families. Our 2017 project at the NPKUA was intended to help the organization realize its vision of a cure for PKU. The organization already had an effective research strategy in place and was investing about $400,000 per year towards PKU research. But recognizing that research advancements place new demands on a community and seeing both the need and the potential for big breakthroughs in drug development, the leaders of the NPKUA wanted to evaluate the organization's strategy and their opportunity to make the biggest impact on the next phases in the community's evolution. Last spring, I conducted a set of interviews with 14 PKU physician scientists and drug developers. Each interview covered the status of their work on PKU, their thoughts on the ideal or most exciting therapeutic approaches for the disease, therapeutic goals, and any recommendations they have for the NPKUA. In order to get concrete feedback on near-term opportunities, we also asked the interviewees a specific question. If the NPKUA had a $1 million donation that it could spend today on drug development, how would you suggest they use it? Our interviewees were some of the great experts in the field, many of whom were here today. We thank again each and every one of you for sharing your time and expertise. The project also drew on Christine's extensive knowledge so that we can focus our time in the most productive areas through those interviews. And we included on the interviewee list not only world-leading PKU experts and leaders of companies working directly on PKU, but also a few people at companies not working on PKU or not yet actively pursuing it, but who could be. It was as important for us to understand why a company isn't working on PKU, even if they have a relevant technology. From our interviews and our research came three outputs: a map of the drug development landscape, which provided an overview of the therapeutic approaches in development for PKU and the research teams working on them; recommendations for the research strategy, which included recommendations for how the NPKUA might utilize its position and resources to best enable therapeutic development going forward; and recommendations for the near-term use of research dollars, which we framed as the hypothetical use of a $1 million donation. It was important for us to focus our conversations on a vision for the optimal solution for PKU. Not just any treatment, but the best one possible. A treatment with a low burden of administration that achieves normal diet and normal phenylalanine levels, and that works for even the most severe cases. We keep our eyes on that goal. The themes across the interviews were remarkably consistent. All of the interviewees very much appreciated the conversation. Drug developers want to talk with the NPKUA. They greatly value that dialogue. They are motivated to help people, and they will do that in every conceivable way, and they can't do it alone. They also expressed admiration for the work of the NPKUA, citing such efforts as a 2015 patient survey the organization conducted among its many great contributions. The interviewees were immediately and widely unanimous that if the NPKUA were able to make a $1 million contribution towards drug development, it would not get you very far, and given the amount of resources available within the companies, wasn't needed. $1 million sounds like a lot to me, and probably to most of us in our real lives, but on the scale of drug development, that can cost as much as $2.6 billion for just one drug. $1 million is a drop in the bucket. And for this community, the consensus was clearly that the NPKUA should focus on what companies can't do, which brings me to infrastructure. Christine talked a little bit about this earlier. The interviewees offered guidance on multiple areas of what we call research infrastructure, by which I mean the tools, information, and resources a community can put in place to support all drug development efforts. They commented on the vital importance of the NPKUA's registry and the need to continue evolving and growing it. That registry is a critical piece of infrastructure. They commented on the perceived unmet medical need in PKU and gaps in data to articulate it. Some drug companies have held back from PKU drug development because of the perception that the disease is manageable with diet. Some noted that a treatment for PKU may be considered by decision makers in the field a lifestyle drug rather than an essential life-saving or life-enabling treatment. They commented on the need for more data that demonstrates that lowering phenylalanine levels is connected to clinically meaningful benefit, which Christine talked about earlier. And other suggestions from interviewees included completing development of the home Phe monitor. And there was also a solution to have a permanent 24-hour-a-day indwelling sensor. Our interviewees encouraged the organization to find ways to enable future clinical trial recruitment and to consider ways it can support advancements in understanding PKU natural history, acknowledging that the conduct of a full natural history study may be beyond the organization's budget. Based on the feedback from these disease and drug development experts, the recommendations to the organization were clear. First, articulate the unmet medical need in PKU so that there is no doubt in the eyes of drug developers, regulators, or payers that this community is in need of a transformative therapy. And in particular, articulate in data how PKU is affecting adults. Managing PKU is not a lifestyle choice. Second, build that infrastructure to support all drug developers, rather than using a hypothetical $1 million for venture philanthropy to invest in specific therapies. Instead, apply those dollars to infrastructure to support all efforts. Top on that list is getting wide agreement on the clinically meaningful outcome that Christine described. It's a term that's used in drug development to refer to how someone feels, functions, or survives. There are lots of things that we can measure in evaluating how sick someone is and how much difference a treatment is making. But you have to prove that what you're measuring affects how you feel, function, or survive, and you need to prove that in data. And for Phe levels, that proof has been debatable. And there is opportunity at the NPKUA to help the whole community and the regulators identify a measure that everyone can agree is clinically meaningful and connect that to changes in Phe levels. A tool to measure neurocognitive functioning is a great possibility, and I am so excited about the meeting that Christine has organized on Monday to start working on this. It is awesome. The other pieces of infrastructure we recommend come directly from the suggestions of our interviewees. applying funds to complete the fee monitor development, establishing a formal clinical trial network to aid the efficient and effective implementation of late-stage clinical trials. These are tasks that are manageable within the NPKUA's budget and would help lower barriers to getting new treatments. Our third recommendation from the project is to continue funding basic research. Supporting basic research is a vital function of the organization. It sows the seeds for big investments in drug development efforts that follow. And it doesn't have to stay basic if you don't want it to. It can include efforts to support projects like the fee monitor or other resources that support clinical development, if that's useful. And our final recommendation is to ensure adequate staff are in place at the organization to build robust, collaborative, and sustainable relationships with drug developers and support all of the projects that we're talking about. The conversations that Christine and I initiated last spring were so welcome and constructive. It takes time and expertise to maintain that dialogue on a regular basis and support the research strategy that we recommend. And it's phenomenal that Lex Kausert is here now as the Director of Research Development at the NPKUA. The other output from our project was an overview of the PKU drug development landscape, a map of therapies being studied, the research teams working on them, and the stage of research they are in. I'd like to use the rest of my time to talk about therapeutic approaches so that you have a sense of what approaches to PKU are in development. There is a lot on the horizon, and you are going to have choices to make. As you think about therapeutic approaches and what you or your family members might want to try in clinical trials or as a treatment prescribed by your doctor, there are different ways to think about which ones might be right for you and your family. Treatments can be differentiated by how you take them. They can be oral, such as a pill or tablet, subcutaneous, which means given by injection into the layer of fat just underneath your skin, intramuscular, which goes into your muscle, or intravenous, by an infusion into your bloodstream. This route of administration is determined by how that drug does its job and where in your body it needs to go. So some medicines, if you swallow them, would be digested in your stomach to the point that they wouldn't work anymore. So they must be administered by IV or injection. Other medicines are meant to work within your GI system, so swallowing them might be the best way to take them. And the route of administration is going to be related to how frequently you need to receive the therapy in order for it to work. Some drugs can be administered continuously, such as with a patch or a depot that releases the drug over time. Oral therapies typically need to be taken on a daily basis, whereas injectables and infusions are often given on a weekly to monthly basis. Newer gene and cellular therapies are hoped to be administered only once to achieve long-lasting or lifetime benefit. Therapies can be differentiated by where they will act in your body, which may be within your gastrointestinal system, your blood or your liver, inside the cells of your body, and even within your DNA. All of the attributes of a drug will drive how effective and safe it is. The degree, duration, and consistency with which potential PKU therapies can achieve normal phenylalanine levels in your blood will likely vary between the therapeutic approaches in development, as will the amount and type of side effects. And lastly, therapies may vary by which PKU patients they can help. Some may be able to help all PKU patients, whereas others may be restricted to certain patient groups, for example, patients with a certain genotype. In thinking about specific approaches to PKU, the cause of disease informs our approach to treatment. And I know you know this, that individuals with PKU consume phenylalanine in the form of proteins in foods like milk and beans. And they can't properly metabolize the phenylalanine because they carry a genetic defect that renders the liver enzyme phenylalanine hydroxylase, or PAH, deficient, which I depict here in my very simple drawing of DNA encoding the enzyme inside a liver cell, which is the primary cell affected by PKU. And this enzyme deficiency results in the toxic accumulation of phenylalanine in the blood, which, as you know, if left untreated, can lead to serious neurological and neuropsychiatric related issues. And understanding this cause of disease suggests that at the most fundamental level, there are two ways to intervene in PKU to lower phenylalanine levels. You can reduce your phenylalanine intake or increase the metabolism, also known as the digestion or breakdown of it. And for decades, the only treatment option has been the left side of the equation, which is to reduce phenylalanine intake by dietary restriction or control. Treatment with large neutral amino acids is another option to block the uptake of Phe at the intestine and blood-brain barrier. As research and development advanced, the community began to find ways to address the right side of the equation, increase the metabolism of phenylalanine. In 2007, the efforts led by BioMarin made Kuvan available. Kuvan restores activity of deficient enzyme for patients who are deficient in a particular cofactor, BH4, that allows the PAH enzyme to work. And in May, BioMarin made a second treatment available, Palynziq, which provides a substitute enzyme called phenylalanine ammonia lyase that takes over the work of the deficient PAH enzyme. And today, we see numerous innovative and increasingly precise ways to restore normal metabolism of phenylalanine, working our way towards the ultimate goal of individuals with PKU being able to eat whatever they want without toxic effects and live full, normal lives without significant burden of treatment administration. And here are the types of therapeutic approaches that are being studied. First, there are novel ways to restore the metabolic function of PAH, the deficient enzyme. Kuvan restores that metabolic function by adding synthetic cofactor BH4 for patients who are lacking it. Other cofactors are also in development, as are other ways of restoring the metabolic function of the deficient enzyme. The exact restoration or repair that needs to be made can vary by the genetic mutation that each patient carries. Some patients have a mutation that results in deficient cofactor. Other patients have a mutation that causes the enzyme to fold improperly, preventing it from performing its job correctly. There are potential chaperone therapies that can correct the misfolding of the protein if that is what your particular genetic mutation causes. One example of this is work being done by Pluvia Biotech, who earlier this year shared news that they received additional funding to support their efforts. Another therapeutic approach is to provide substitute enzyme, an enzyme that's different from PAH, but can perform the same function. Palynziq provides a substitute enzyme in the form of injectable PAL. The challenge with substitute enzyme is figuring out how you get it to a place in your body where it can do its job. This is called delivery in drug development. Enzymes are big and complex. Most enzymes, if you swallow them, are so big that your stomach would digest them into pieces or change them in a way that they don't work anymore. But the state of science is evolving, and there are multiple research teams discovering ways to solve the delivery challenges with substitute enzyme. This is a vibrant area of research. Codexis is developing an oral form of PAL that is in the early stages of drug development. They are using their technology to engineer an active therapeutic enzyme that could be stable in your GI system meaning that it could be given orally to remove phenylalanine from the body. Some companies are developing engineered probiotic bacteria or microbes that could substitute for deficient PAH. We all have hundreds of trillions of symbiotic microbes that live within us, especially in the gut. They're natural, beneficial bacteria, and engineered versions of these can be used to help remove excess phenylalanine. One example of this is Synlogic's efforts. They initiated a clinical trial in April and are developing their technology called synthetic biotic medicines. Their compound for PKU is an engineered probiotic bacteria that metabolizes phenylalanine from the diet and blood, potentially lowering overall phenylalanine levels. A third approach to providing substitute enzyme is by attaching it to red blood cells. The red blood cells may help protect the substitute enzyme from your immune system and deliver it to the phenylalanine that it needs to digest. Rubius Therapeutics is an example of this. They are using their technology to genetically engineer red blood cells to express biotherapeutic proteins within or on the surface of cells. They are planning to file an application early next year to begin human clinical trials of one such treatment for PKU. And there are other developers also pursuing red blood cell delivery at earlier stages of development. Another broad category of possible treatment for PKU is to add to the liver entire liver cells that are capable of expressing fully functional PAH enzyme. In the first therapeutic approach we talked about improving or correcting your own enzyme to make it work better. In the second approach, we talked about providing different enzymes that could substitute for PAH. In this approach, we could add a whole functional liver cell to your liver that, if it works, would grow and live there and allow those cells to produce a healthy version of PAH. And this could potentially be done by a liver cell transplant, an approach that's being studied by both the University of Pittsburgh in a clinical trial and the Karolinska Institute in earlier stage development. And last but certainly not least are the innovative gene therapies that hold the promise of one-time treatment and addressing disease at the genetic level. The nomenclature in this area can be confusing. Terms are not used consistently between companies, and sometimes even within one company, and it can make these incredibly complex technologies even harder to understand. One type of gene therapy is gene addition, by which I mean adding new pieces of DNA to your cells. For PKU, these pieces of DNA would carry the instructions to make healthy PAH enzyme. Another category is gene editing, which typically refers to approaches such as CRISPR or zinc finger nucleases or other methods of editing or cutting your DNA that result in the correction of the genetic error that causes PKU. Gene therapies typically require the use of a vector that can serve as a delivery vehicle for the treatment. And a vector is needed because the treatment has to reach all the way down into your cells, into the nucleus and the DNA. And it takes a very special delivery mechanism to do that. And the type of vector that is needed to deliver the gene therapy will vary, and it will impact how it's administered. Some gene therapies may be administered by IV infusion, whereas others may require a clinician to remove cells from the body, perform the gene addition or gene editing, and then return the engineered cells back to the patient. And that's called ex vivo gene therapy, or outside the body. All of the gene therapies are intended to be one-time, or at least very long-acting treatments. They haven't been available long enough for us to know yet the full duration of their effect. And there are multiple companies studying and making great progress on gene therapy for PKU. Examples include BioMarin, Homology Medicines, and American Gene Technologies. For me, looking in from the outside, The breadth and volume of these possibilities for PKU is extraordinary. The best news for this community is that you have multiple different promising approaches to treatment being developed. You want that, both because no one can know with certainty which ones will work, and also because the best solution for one person may not be the same for someone else or at the same point in someone's life. It is ideal to have multiple options available so that families can find the treatment or combination of treatments that works best for them. I'd like to put some of these approaches into timing perspective. Some of these are nearer to being a treatment option for PKU, and some are farther. As we all know too well, the road of drug development is long. This figure I'm showing is from the Pharmaceutical Industries Trade Organization, PhRMA, and shows the standard pathway and timing for a potential new therapy to go from basic research to an FDA-approved medicine in the United States. All drug development follows a period of basic research, which itself may be decades long. The official drug development process starts with drug discovery, shown by the first green column in this figure, in which particular compounds or substances that will become the drug are identified. This is followed by preclinical development, in which that substance is tested in cells and animals according to standardized procedures. If a potential drug shows adequate safety and efficacy in the preclinical phase, it moves into human clinical trials, starting small in phase 1 to understand safety, then demonstrating early efficacy and dose response in phase 2, and concluding with a definitive demonstration of safety and efficacy in larger phase 3 trials. If the benefit-risk profile is deemed acceptable, the drug will receive market authorization. And this begins another equally challenging phase of ensuring access to the medicine by payers, which in the US is insurance companies, Medicare or Medicaid. And that has become as big of a challenge as obtaining market authorization. There are certainly exceptions to this pathway. Gene therapy certainly has exceptions to it, but this is a general framework. Developing a drug from the time of discovery through FDA or EMA approval is on average more than a decade long. Clinical trials alone take 6 to 7 years on average, and the failure rate is incredibly high. Only about 10% of drugs will ever get approved. And while the numbers can be controversial, the statistic I mentioned earlier is that the average cost to research and develop a successful drug is about $2.6 billion. We can apply the PKU therapeutic approaches to this timeline to get a sense of how near or far the potential treatments options for PKU are. I will note up front that this figure doesn't include dietary options or medical foods, and it is certainly not an exhaustive list. There is a lot happening in your field. And we've done our best effort to put here information that everyone's comfortable being public and to not put information that people don't want to be public, but if we didn't get it right, just let us know. So you can see here on this figure that the 2 treatments from BioMarin reached the post-approval stage. And you can see that there are 2 compounds that are in clinical trial, Synlogic's synthetic biologic that just initiated phase 1 clinical trials, as well as the University of Pittsburgh trial evaluating the safety and efficacy of injecting functional liver cells into the livers of individuals with PKU. There are multiple companies at the preclinical stage, including Codexis with their oral PAL, Rubius with red blood cell delivery of substitute enzyme, and BioMarin Homology and American Gene Technology in preclinical testing of gene therapies. All of these will, if deemed safe and effective in animals, will start to emerge in clinical trials for testing in humans. And you can see there's lots of activity back in the drug discovery phases. This early work is incredibly exciting. And it shows you why the infrastructure in development at the NPKUA is so important. Because to carry all of these compounds forward as fast as possible, from the left to the right side of the timeline, will take everyone working together and reducing barriers to that pathway in any way possible. The business of biotechnology can bear the expense of early development. The science will bear out which of these will work. And it is the infrastructure that the NPKUA can provide that will enable the most efficient progress possible, allow for an informed patient community, and support good, patient-focused decision-making along the way. So, to the amazing PKU community, as you continue to evolve, ever dynamic, I leave you with a few of my closing thoughts. Both the history and the future of PKU are built most successfully on collaboration. The incredible progress in the field to date is a credit to every family and clinician and researcher who has been working together to build the resources, knowledge, and relationships required for the successful development of meaningful therapies. And that collaboration will be needed more than ever as opportunity grows. Everyone has a role to play. Patients or family members can enable progress by being informed about their choices and aware of what's happening. The choice to participate in any given clinical trial is incredibly important and personal and can only be made by you and your family and your doctor. But you can know what's happening. Everyone can be aware of the progress in the field and the choices that are available to the community. And you can join the registry. The NPKUA can continue to enable progress by building infrastructure, connecting the community, and ensuring patient-centered decision-making. And clinicians and researchers can work together, celebrate each other's successes, and share what is common. We have a bold dream, a dream that children born today with PKU will live their adult lives on normal diet, with normal phenylalanine levels, unburdened by treatment administration. It is a dream, and it is a bold dream. And while no one can have certainty about exactly how or when we will achieve it, we can hold it in our minds, because that is the only way we will get there, by not letting it go. The path of drug development is long and difficult, and biology is complicated. It is hard to transform a rare disease, and there are days when everyone wants to give up, when the struggle is too great, or our part in finding the solution feels small or insignificant. But sometimes just doing something to help, small or large, is all we can do. And I think for this amazing community, if everyone keeps doing something to help and keeps doing the best you can, the bold dream has a shot at reality. I congratulate all of you on the amazing progress this community has achieved, and I can't wait to follow what lies ahead.